Hey, I'm Greg.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji guys. Today's video is to talk about our F-Series cameras and the top features of the F-Series. Now, there's lots to show you here because of course our F-Series is our top line compact cameras. And we've jam-packed features into these cameras for years right now. We've evolved over the last few years to add several new advanced features. So they're really worth updating your camera for right now. So yeah, it's our top of the line, high-end, compact, long zoom camera. This features a 20 times wide angle zoom. That's kind of the type of camera it is. But it's an advanced or high-end because of a lot of what's built into this camera, between the sensor and processing technology that we use, the type of LCD screen we use, and of course all the stuff that Billy's just going to describe to you now, the top features per se that really go above and beyond the shooting capabilities and scope of any of your typical point and shoot digital cameras. So Billy, let's go through those top features.
If you're traveling, the panoramic mode is a cool feature to try out, especially for outdoors. It allows you to do a 360 stitch, or up to 360 stitch if you wanted to. And to do that, you change the dial to the advanced dial. From there, you push the menu OK button where you can end up selecting the motion panoramic feature. From that, you select the motion panoramic. You can change the angle by pushing down, so you can do it from a 120, 180, 360, and even a completely rotating 360, which is kind of neat. For this demo, I'm going to do 120 because it's easier for me to show you on the camera. Also, you can change the direction, so you don't have to go left or right to left. You can also move it up and down or down and up. And what I sometimes like to do is change the direction to go bottom to top, right? I rotate the camera vertically, and now I actually have a higher resolution panoramic. So I can start off my panoramic by pushing the button and then rotating the camera. And it's going to stitch that image automatically for me in the camera. And because I did it vertically, I have a higher resolution. And that's a simple trick for doing the panoramic mode. And they did a good job of it. Of course, ideally, you want to have it on a tripod, but with good lighting, you should get some incredible panoramic features, photos with this camera. Now, the F900 is an EXR camera. So it uses an EXR processor as well as an EXR sensor technology. In the automatic mode, which is this, the camera basically acts like any other digital camera, which basically, does the exposure, and of course, by pushing halfway down, you get the focusing. But that's automatic. But in EXR, it's one step above. What it's actually doing, it's turning a couple things: the focusing. So it's going to use phase detection if it needs to, and by doing that, it can determine if you're taking a picture of a subject. If that's the case, it then sets it to a portrait mode that gives you better skin tones. In addition to that, once you push the button halfway down to lock both exposure and focus, it then configures the sensor, and it determines if the sensor needs to be better for low light, if it needs to be better for a high contrast scene that's very bright, very dark, which we call started having greater dynamic range, or if it doesn't need to do anything. So in this instance here, it's thinking that because of the higher bright areas in the scene and the darker areas, it's going to use this dynamic range feature that kind of keeps everything in tow and holds the detail both in the highlights and the shadow. In low light situations, of course, it's going to switch it to an SN mode, which merges the pixels together. So effectively, instead of being a 16 megapixel camera, it becomes an 8 megapixel camera, but it's basically having larger photo sites giving you a clearer image when shooting at a higher ISO. So this is a really easy, simple to do mode for someone who wants to just point and shoot, and the camera does everything for you from selecting the scene, the subject, and the lighting situation to give you sort of the ideal picture. Of course, when you go into the menu, you can also configure the EXR mode to always shoot in a certain priority, in the sense, if you know you're going to shoot in low light, you can set it up to the high ISO low noise priority mode, and it will again merge the pixels together and give you a cleaner looking image than if you were just to shoot in, say, the automatic mode on this camera. The F900 has a cool feature called multi-exposure that basically puts two images and overlays it into one single image that gives you kind of a creative effect. You can do that through the advanced dial, and as you go through the advanced dial, you push the menu OK button, and from there you can change to the different advanced features like the advanced filters, the panoramic mode, pro focus low light mode, as well as this multi-exposure. Again, that takes two shots and superimposes it into a single image. So let's just try that. What you have to do is determine your scene that you want to take a picture of. Let's say, for instance, this is the scene I want. I would take the picture. It then says if that's okay, I push OK. And then it gives me that ghost overlay of that original image. And now I can actually reposition the camera and take a picture maybe of my fist right here, punching the Fuji guys. Take the shot. And now I'm going to go OK for that, and now I have that superimposed image of my fist kind of over the Fuji guy's a bobblehead doll there. So that's kind of a cool feature to have. And you obviously can be very creative with this feature and do all kinds of things. Now, of course, you can always do this in Photoshop. You can take 2 images and use the layers to adjust. But for people who want simplicity, a camera just doing it all for you, this is a great feature through the advanced dial. The F900 is truly an advanced camera. Of course, in addition to the EXR mode that automatically determines the scene and the lighting situation, it adjusts to the various scenes and configures the processor and sensor so that it can be better for low light or in high contrast scenes. You also have the ability to control both the shutter speed and aperture. So you do that through the S, A, and M mode. P is basically the automatic mode, which does everything, but it opens up more controls in terms of sharpness, contrast, settings that you normally wouldn't adjust in automatic mode. You also have then that shutter priority, which is the S dial, and in that mode you adjust the shutter speed, as you can see here using the command dial, and the camera will appropriately adjust the aperture for the lighting situation. In addition, the aperture priority mode allows you to basically adjust the aperture on the camera that controls the depth of field in terms of what's in focus, what's out of focus. And as you adjust the aperture, the smaller the number is, of course, the less depth of field you have. The higher the number, the more depth of field. So things come in focus more. And that, again, the camera will determine the proper shutter speed to get the right exposure for that. Then you have full manual controls in which you then control both the aperture and shutter speeds. As you can see here, as I rotate the dial, the shutter speed adjusts. And by pushing up on the exposure button here, I can toggle through the aperture mode and adjust the aperture from there. And this little guy down here basically is kind of like my light meter. As I change the shutter speeds, as you notice, and I get too slow of a shutter speed, my scene's going to be overexposed. So that should be a washed out image. If I adjust the shutter speed to be faster, 1/6 of a second, I take the same shot. As you can see, it shows that I'm going to be underexposed, so it's going to be dark. And if I adjust the shutter speed so that this burst kind of stays in the middle, and I take the photo, it's going to give me a proper exposure. So that's basically how you control and how the camera can help you give you the proper exposure when shooting in the full manual mode on this camera. This camera is great for doing videos. It basically offers a full HD 1080p 60 frames per second video. It's pretty simple. It doesn't matter what mode you're in. You push the record button to instantly record your HD videos. This number on top tells you basically how much you can record. It's about 15-minute clips. It doesn't matter the size of card, of course, but it limits to about 15 minutes, I believe. And of course, the number on top here is the number of shots you can take. So you can actually take photos during your video, and it's uninterrupted video, so that when you take the photo, you're not going to get a short blank pause in between. If I stop the video, as you can see here, let's take a look at the video itself. You'll see that these are individual clips. This is actually about a 3 megapixel image. And then if it's a video, you'll see that it's low grid. You push down to play it. It uses stereo sounds with the 2 microphones, as well as the audio speaker to play it back. So that's basically the video functionality. But you can go into the camera via the menu system and configure the movie so that you don't have to shoot full HD video. You can shoot it at 720, 640, 480. Or you can do these high-speed modes up to about 480 frames a second, which basically is like doing slow motion, but there's not going to be any audio. Let me see if I can show that to you. It's kind of cool to have. I'm going to have a pencil that I'm going to try to drop, and I'm going to start to record the video here. So it's just a few seconds I recorded, and when I play it back, it's going to be quite long. As you can see, it's just for a short moment of time. Of course, the resolution is much smaller. But as you can see, you get that cool pencil effect in that slow motion. And again, I can just reverse it. and play it again. And that's kind of cool, a cool thing to do, whether you're breaking a balloon or anything like that. So that's a nice feature to have. In the menu as well, in the movie setup, you can also change the autofocus mode so that instead of it constantly adjusting focus, you can set it up to be the center focus. So it initially starts to focus and it doesn't adjust. If you prefer to do that. There's also the ability to actually adjust the resolution of the image as you take a photo. So in the movie priority mode, the video is going to be uninterrupted, but you'll be able to take a picture, but it's only 3 megapixels. When you set it to the still image priority, you actually allowed to capture an 8 megapixel image, but there might be a slight little pause during the video playback. So I personally prefer having the movie priority, and that's just, again, a quick look at the full HD function on the camera. The camera has a great macro mode that lets you get down to about 2 centimeters away. When you push the macro here, as you can see, it's quite close, right over there, and it's quite detailed. This is a great camera for getting really close to the scene, as you can see there. If I zoom in, you can see all the details that you get in this macro mode. I always find shooting macro mode is quite nice. It gives you some incredible sharpness, but also see that shallow depth of field that's recreated because of that more linear focus distance, which makes it kind of cool to do sort of that autofocus background effect. As you can see, the subject back there is kind of out of focus, while the subject in focus on the pencil. So that's just the macro mode. Let's take a look at the auto bracketing function of this camera. To go into the auto bracketing mode, you're going to push the menu OK button. Scroll down in the shooting menu until you see the continuous option. From there, you can select the bracketing modes. As you can see, it's a different menu now. I have things like the auto exposure bracketing, film simulation bracketing, as well as the dynamic range bracketing. For auto exposure bracketing, you can change it from a third stop to up to 1 full stop. As you can see, when you take a photo in this bracketing mode, it takes basically 3 pictures. One that's properly exposed, one that is overexposed, and one that's underexposed by 1 stop. So that's 1 stop underexposed, 1 stop overexposed, and 1 stop evenly exposed. You also have the options, of course, to shoot in a film simulation bracketing as well. Now, if you have your E function button set to the mode, you can push the E function, push up, and it brings you to that menu quickly. Here, again, film simulation mode, it takes 3 shots and gives you 3 different film simulation features on this camera. The F900 has a couple of function buttons. On the top here, as you can see, you can push it, and it allows you to change the ISO, but you can configure that function button to change other features if you wanted to by holding down the button for a few seconds. And it brings up a menu, and you can select what you want that button to do, whether it's changing the focus, turning on face detection. So if I set it to face detection, I push the button, and I can have face detection on. I push it, and I can actually turn it off. Holding back down again, I can set it back to the ISO mode, which I prefer, but you can change it to different settings right here. In addition to that, there's this electronic function button, and basically it doubles up the directional pad to be additional features. So currently, if I push the directional pad now, it turns the macro, it turns the flash, it adjusts the self timer, it also does exposure compensation, as you can see. But if I want to use this as secondary functions, I can push the E function button, and then it gives me a virtual screen where these buttons here kind of line up to what the buttons are. So I can now change ISO from here, or I could change it to high-speed shooting mode if I wanted to, give me quick access to that. And of course, I can also configure the E function button to what I like to see as well. And again, you go into the menu and select the E function custom settings from which you can adjust the buttons you want. So if you wanted this button, dynamic range, to be something else, you can push down, and you can select it to be white balance instead if you prefer that. And if you wanted the display button, as you can see there, that's these are the configurable buttons on the top here, as you can see. And if you don't want that to be a different button versus geotagging, you can change that to be film simulation. So next time you're out, you push the E function button. You can now change the film simulation quickly, and that's kind of nice to be able to actually customize that, and it's a cool feature on this camera. The F900 has basically a hybrid autofocus that uses face detection. Very, very fast. As you can see, snap away. And basically, it also uses a contrast detection if lighting is not very good. But generally, the autofocus is quite amazing on this camera. Picks up focus very, very quickly, as you can see right here. In addition to that, if you go into the menu OK button, you can change the different focusing options on this camera through the focus mode. There's things like the center, which is what I showed you. There's multi-area focusing, so if I select that, it basically will try to detect the focus point that has highest contrast. As you can see, it kind of finds that subject being the highest of contrast, and it moves it to the various points. And if you go back in, change the focusing modes, you got the continuous autofocus. And that basically constantly focuses the camera so that when you take the picture, there's really no delays in taking the shot because it's already set the focus. As you can see, if I point it there, it should focus back there, and I should be allowed to take the picture right away. It's very, very fast, very useful for doing sports action shots where you're kind of moving that subject and it's running around. You can also change the focusing mode to a tracking focus, which basically when you enable it, you would aim it to the subject or the person that you want to start tracking on. You would push left, and that's locked on the subject. And as the subject moves left and right, the tracking moves with it. And basically, as the subject moves out of the scene, comes back in, it really helps you to kind of move the photo so that it can track the picture. And it just makes the focusing a lot faster, okay? Let's take a look at the Pro Focus mode and Pro Low Light mode on the F900. To get into that shooting mode, you have to set the dial to the advanced and then push the menu OK button. From that, it brings up a menu where you can actually select the Pro Focus mode as well as the Pro Low Light mode. So I'm going to show you the Pro Focus mode. This sort of mimics sort of a DSLR type of effect where you get a shallow depth of field. It actually takes multiple images. It then determines what the foreground and background is, and it actually blurs the background out. In this instance, you can set what you call the softness or the depth of field. And again, you can set it from taking just 1 frame, 2 frames, or 3 frames. I'm going to try to see if you can actually do the 3 frames of shooting, and it gives me a better look. So again, I'm just going to push halfway down, and it might tell me if I can't do the shot. It needs to have a certain depth in the background. Here's actually just going to take the 2 pictures, and then it's going to create that nice little shallow depth of field here. As you can see, as I zoom in, the background is slightly a little blurred right here, as you can see, and it kind of gives you that mimic look of a DSLR. So that's just a Pro Focus mode. And there's what's called a Pro Low Light mode. So if you want to shoot a night scene and you want to get very, very clean images over and above the EXR mode, again, you would go into the advanced dial, you would push the menu OK button, and then select the Pro Low Light mode. Again, with this mode, it takes four shots, and then it determines what is noise, what isn't noise, and it cleans out the image. Again, you want to have this on a tripod because it's actually taking 4 shots. Again, you'll see here, I'm going to push the button, and it just snapped away with a bunch of shots. It's now going to determine what the foreground and background is, and it's technically going to give me a cleaner image with less noise than if I actually, as you can see, it's very clean, even the complete black there, as you can see. It's going to give me better low noise, for night scenes than I would shooting just either the EXR mode or even just the automatic modes, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's a mode that you want to definitely put it on a tripod because it does take multiple shots. Let's take a look at the high-speed shooting mode on the F900. There's 2 ways of getting into that mode. You can actually push the menu OK button and scroll down and up the menu until you see the continuous option, as you see, and you can select it from there. Or, which is faster, you can actually push the E function button, and it gives you a quick access to the continuous drive mode by pushing up. And now I can select the continuous shooting modes. Again, I have things like 3 frames a second, 6 frames a second, 11 frames a second at full resolution, and it gives me the best option there. And of course, I can also have 16 frames a second, but it's at half the resolution. There's also even a function called the best frame capture feature, and it's part of the continuous shooting options. You can set it up, and the way it works is that it allows you to configure the ability to shoot 7 or 14 frames at, of course, half the resolution. And you can actually set this setting up here. As you can see, I'm moving these dots left and right. And what it's actually doing is that it's setting it up to take pictures prior to you pushing the shutter button, and to take pictures after after you fully depress the shutter button. So in this instance here, when it's set to 5 to 8, when I push the button halfway down, the camera starts to take picture, but it doesn't store anything. Once I push the shutter button completely down, it actually stores that shot. It stores 8 shots after I actually depress the shutter button, but it also captures 5 shots prior to me fully depressing the shutter button. So it sort of takes the guesswork out of shooting high speed. So that's just a quick look at that. But I want to show you really the high speed shooting mode, the normal high speed shooting mode, which is called the top frame high speed, and it shoots, again, I'm going to set it to 11 frames a second. Okay, so it's set. And basically you want to push halfway down to pre-focus. And as the subject's moving by, I guess you can just snap away. As you can see, then it's going to store those images. Now, to play back the images, you push the playback button on the camera. And you got to wait till it writes all the images to the card. So you want to have a very fast card for this. It actually groups the images into one single shot, so that when you navigate multiple images, you're not going to see all 9, 10 shots. You actually can go through the next set of shots. So in order to see those images, you actually have to push down. And now you can see that you've captured the 8 frames. I can rotate this, as you can see. That's sort of the high-speed shooting that I just done right there. If I want to just delete one of those frames, I can push up, select OK, and it deletes that one frame. So now I technically only have 7 of the images. If I push back and I go back to the group viewing mode, as you can see, if I actually push the delete button and I delete this frame, it's actually going to delete everything. So I lose my whole set of continuous shooting options. So again, just a quick little look at the high-speed mode on the F900. Let's take a look at the advanced filter on the F900. To get into the advanced filter features, you have to set the dial to the advanced. As you can see, you can push the menu OK button. From there, you have different options of which modes you're shooting in the advanced mode. There's things like panorama, pro low light, pro focus. There's even a multi-exposure. On top of that, there's the advanced filter options. So I'm going to select that. And from that menu, I can actually select the various advanced filters like toy effect. There's the miniature effect, a pop color, which saturates the color, high key, which kind of over-exaggerate the brightness in the area, the low key, which is the opposite, makes it more dark and dramatic, I guess. You've got a dynamic function where it just really saturates and gives it sort of a fake fantasy effect look to the image. It's a soft focus. When you want to take a picture of a portrait, it gives you sort of that effect. It's like putting Vaseline in front of the lens to give you that blurring soft effect. You got partial colors, as you can see here. You'd see a live view. I set it to red, and it actually only picks up the red colors. Everything else becomes monochrome. Again, this is the orange. You got yellow. You have the green. You have red. So only thing that's red will appear. And again, you got purple, and then you're back to the toy color. So I'm going to go back to the red here, as you can see. And as you can see, all the dots that appear red show up. Everything else is in black and white. You do see a live view of this. When you take a snapshot, it actually saves it. And the great thing about this feature is that you do see a live view. You see exactly what you're going to capture. And again, you zoom in here, as you can see, only the red appear. Everything else on the image is in monochrome or black and white. There's other effects too that you can take a look at. Things like that toy camera effect. It gives you that retro styling, vignetting around the edges. Again, you take the snapshot of that, and as you can see, it gives you that sort of old-fashioned look. And this is a great feature where you want to just take the photos and you want to share it on things like Facebook or even on Twitter. So again, a quick look at the advanced feature mode.
Okay, yeah, well, as I said, there was going to be a lot to talk about with those cameras, and there certainly was. A lot of top features, a lot of things that sets this camera way apart from your typical point-and-shoot camera. And the fact that it does fit in your pocket with all of that really makes it an ideal travel camera or something. So please check out the rest of our videos by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and follow Billy on Twitter just to keep up with all the latest news from Fuji. Until then, I am Greg.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji guys.